So for this lesson, we have been dealing with linear equations. Remember, a linear equation is just anything that's y equals mx plus b, because it makes a line. We're going to deal with a system of linear equations. That means you're going to have two or more equations, and you're going to find a solution for that answers both of those equations. Meaning that when you're dealing with a line, you're going to find two lines, and you're going to find where they cross. That's the answer. Okay? There's lots of different ways you can do this. You can graph it and see the point at which they cross. We can do a table and see the point where they have the same answer. Or we can solve using substitution, which we'll do at the end of the lesson. Okay, but I want you to understand the concept. We're dealing with two equations, and we're going to find out where those two equations cross. That's the solution. Okay, it's going to be a point, like a coordinate like this. Okay, so let's look at example 1. We have two equations, y equals x minus 5 and y equals negative 3x plus 7. So we're going to solve this system. This is two equations. It's called a system of equations. We're going to do this one using a table. So you draw a table. We have our x value. And the x values, you can just pick which ones you want to use. So we're going to use 0, 1, 2, and 3. We're trying to find out where, when I plug any of these x values in for x, I want to find out where their y's are the same number. Okay? So then I have my two equations. I have y equals x minus 5, and then I have y equals negative 3x plus 7. So basically we're just going to plug in x for each of these equations and solve so that we can find where they have the same answer. Make sense so far? So the first x I chose was 0, right? So I'm going to plug in a 0 where this x is. What is 0 minus 5? 0 minus 5 is?
5.
Just negative 5. Okay, what if I plug in a 1 there? Take my 1. What's 1 minus 5?
1 minus 5. 1?
Uh-huh. Minus 5.
Negative 6.
No.
4.
Yep. Because it's a positive 1 and then minus 5. I have a pattern going on here. What is 2 minus 5?
Negative 3.
And what is 3 minus 5?
Negative 2.
Very good. Okay, so I plugged him into that first equation. Now let's plug it into this second equation where there's a little more going on. So I plug in my 0 there to start with, right? Negative 3 times 0 is?
Negative 3.
0.
0.
Every number times 0 is 0. 0 plus 7 is? 7. Okay, now I'm going to plug in my 1. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 7 would be?
Negative 4.
Positive 4. Because the 7's positive. It's okay. Now I plug in the 2. Here, let me write it so you can see it. I have negative 3 times 2 plus 7. What's negative 3 times 2?
6.
Yep.
Positive 1.
Bam. See, if it helps you to write it out, write it out. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to plug in is my 3. So I have negative 3 times 3 plus 7. Negative 3 times 3 is what?
9.
Negative 9. Negative 9 plus 7 is?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. Did I come out with where they have the same answer?
Yes.
Right here. See the negative 2's? So then you take your xy. So here's x and here's my y. So the answer or solution to this system of linear equations is 3 comma negative 2. That is the answer.
So you take the ones that have the same...
When they match, when the y's match. When you're dealing with a table. This is actually my least favorite way to solve this.
It's very.
It works. It's fine. Graphing is the next one, which I don't like that either. My favorite one is the algebra way. We'll do that next. But we're going to do graphing. You guys will probably like the graphing. It's pretty simple. But here's how to do a table. You will need to do a table a few times in the lesson just to make sure you know how to do this. Okay, the key is to find where they have the matching y's, and then this is your x, this is your y, write it as a solution. Okay? Any questions on this? So let's look at example 2. This time we're going to graph. So we have y equals 2x plus 3, and we have y equals negative x plus 6. So grab a graph. You can draw it if you want, or you can grab one and cut it out. And we're going to graph each of these. I'm going to make this one my blue line, this one my red line. So, graphing the blue line, where do I start at? Where's my y-intercept? Where's my, the y line. Where's my y-intercept when you're looking at this equation? But you guys remember which is the y-intercept?
Oh, yeah, the 3.
So I go up 3 and I put a dot.
Yes.
What's my slope?
The 2.
So I go up 2 over 1.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh, I remember that.
Good. I'm telling you, this all builds. You guys remember it? So then I graph this. The reason I don't like graphing is I can't draw straight lines, so it's hard to figure out where they cross for me. But we'll make it happen. It's okay. All right, so let's graph my red line now. What's my y-intercept?
Negative 6.
Positive 6. So 3, 4, 5, 6. What's my slope?
Negative x, so that would be go down 1.
Down 1 over 1. Look at that. It plops right on top of a dot. That makes me happy. So where do these two lines cross?
At the
This dot, which is at x equals 1. What does my y equal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they cross at 1, 5. See, graphing, ironically, is a little faster than doing the table, as long as you can draw straight lines. I even didn't draw a straight line there. I just can't do it. You find where they cross. They cross right here at this dot, so you have to see that x is at 1 and y is at 5. So this stands for x, this stands for y.
So for example, the 3 go up 1 over 1, right? Yeah.
For the intercept, no, you just go up to 3 and put a dot.
Oh, okay. So you don't do any.
You only do the up 1 over 1 or whatever it is if you're doing slope. Being sick is no fun. Okay, any questions on graphing and finding the solution? The key is to get to this solution, guys. All right, so let's just a few of these. Grab a piece of paper. On your own number 1, we have y equals x minus 1 and y equals negative x plus 3. It says solve the system of linear equations using a table and using a graph. So we're going to do a table and a graph. Okay, remember the first part of the table is just your x value, and you can pick whatever numbers you want to use.
Oh, we're doing the graph again?
We're doing a table. This is a table.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And then here's your two equations. Y equals x minus 1 and y equals negative x plus 3. Okay, so what numbers do we want to use for the x value? Did you like the 0, 1, 2, 3? We can try that. Ooh, you're talkative. Okay, so I'm going to plug in my 0 where the x is here. What is 0 minus 1? Negative 1. Now I'm going to plug in my 1 here. What's 1 minus 1? Now I plug in the 2. 2 minus 1. I'm so glad Sophia's paying attention. Plug in my 3. 3 minus 1. Thanks. Make me feel like I'm not talking to myself. Okay, so that's the first equation. So now we're going to take our x values and we're going to plug them in here in the second equation. So if I put a 0 there, negative 0 is just 0. What is 0 plus 3? Yes. So now I'm going to plug in my 1 value here. Negative 1 plus 3 would be negative 2. Now I plug in my 2 value here. So a negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Hey, do we have a match?
Yes.
Yay, we have a match. So this is my point. So I'm going to say 2, 1.
So we have to solve for 3.
Nope. Or just go till we find your match. Okay, so that's the table version. Now we're going to graph it. So I'm going to turn the page on. Yay, that means we did it right. Just had to graph it. But you see, you should get the same answers whether you're solving using the table. So we had y equal, you don't have to rewrite this. Just go to a piece of graph paper. All right, so for the first one, this will be my red line, this will be my blue line. What is my y-intercept for my red line? We have y equals x minus 1. What's my y-intercept? Negative 1. Make sure you take the... So I go down 1 on the y line, put a dot. What's my slope?
X.
Right in front of the x. What's right in front of the x? So up 1 over 1. So there's my red line. I almost drew a straight line. Okay, for my blue line, the next one, what is my y-intercept?
3.
Up 3. 1, 2, 3, put a dot. What's my slope?
Negative X.
So negative 1. So I go down 1 over 1. And draw a straight line. Yes, I did it. Okay, where do they cross? Right here, right? See my yellow circle? I heard it. So he went over 2. How many up?
Up 1.
So my answer is 2, 1. Because the x value is over 2, the y value is up 1. Good job. Is that what we got on?
Oh, this was number 2?
This was still number 1. Or graphing. You should still get the same answer. This was all number 1.
So you technically look
So,
on
like
the last number.
You look and see where they cross.
Okay.
Doesn't matter which one you put, or you have to put both of them?
In this case, they want us to do both. When you're doing your homework, you only have to do one or the other. I don't care if you graph it or do the table, it's fine. I don't want to grade all that. Okay, so let's do number 2. Okay, we're going to start with the table. Our favorite.
Do you have to learn?
You have to learn it.
Oh.
You do have to learn it.
Honestly, I'd rather do the table than
Then the graph, that's fine. So when you're doing your homework and you have the option, you may pick. Okay, so our first equation is y equals negative 5x plus 14. And the second equation is y equals x minus 10. So let's just do the first two, because sometimes you might want to put a negative number for your x value. So I'm going to do 0 and 1 and see if we get close. And if we do, it'll kind of tell me which way I need to go for my third x value. So I'm going to plug in 0 where the x is. What's negative 5 times 0?
5 times 0.
0.
0.
Plus 14?
14.
Bam. Okay, now I'm going to plug in the 1. Negative 5 times 1 is? Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Plus 14. Okay, that didn't drop very much, did it? Let's see how far we are on this other equation. Let's do this one. So if I put a 0 here, 0 minus 10 is just minus 10. If I put a 9 there, 9 minus 10 is negative 1, right?
Yeah.
So these are still quite a ways off. So let's pick a bigger number here instead of just doing number 2. What's a bigger number we could pick?
3.
Try 3. So we'll put a 3 here. Okay, so let's do the first equation. 3 into x means we have negative 5 times 3, which would be negative 15. Negative 15 plus 14 is negative 1. So now let's plug the 3 in on the bottom one. We have 3 minus 10 gives me negative 7, right? Okay, they're still not matching. That's okay.
Oh, wow.
Let's try the next number. This is why I don't like the tables. Let's try 4. Okay, if I plug 4 in here, I get negative 20. Negative 20 plus 14 would be a positive?
7.
No, a negative 7, right? My bad. Right? Hold on. No, I can't math today. Negative 20 plus 14 would be 6. Negative 6. My fault.
We all fell for it though.
I know. Because 20 minus 14 is 6, and it's a negative 20. All right, so let's plug 4 in the bottom one. 4 minus 10.
6.
Hallelujah. So we have our point. 4 comma negative 6. Okay, now let's graph it. Same equations, we're just graphing them. So we have y equals negative 5x plus 14, y equals x minus 10. Okay, so let's make this my red line, this my blue line. Graphing my red line, what's my y-intercept? 14, oh my goodness.
There's only 10.
There's only 10.
So let's go by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. What's my slope?
5. So you go up 5.
It's a negative 5.
Negative 5. Oh, you go down 5.
Remember, this is 2, so 2, 4.5 makes me down 5 over 1. So it's kind of right there in the middle. All right, let's do the blue line. What's my y-intercept?
10,
Negative 10, so 2, whoops. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And my slope is up 1 over 1. All right, now we connect the dots here. See, my graph is terrible, but I'm close right here, aren't I?
Yeah.
Let's see, this would be 2, 4, 6, and negative 4. I don't believe that's what we got. 4 and negative 6. I have it backwards. This is why I don't like graphing, because I can't draw straight lines to save my life. Now, when you're on your paper, it should go better than up on the screen here, because you can use a ruler. Oh, I know why my blue line's off. It's up 1 over 1, but these are by 2s, and I did it by 1s. So let me fix my blue line. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Up 1 over 1 should be in the middle there.
But how do we do the first one? Because the y-intercept is 14.
We went by twos. We went by twos. Each line is worth 2. So this is at 14. That dot.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let me see if I can draw better lines. Nope. Okay, well, since we did it earlier, we know it should be crossing where? At -6, 4. It should cross right there. So let me see if I can make it cross there. Close enough. Okay, so graphing is, whoops. Graphing is more difficult on my screen. You should be able to do it on your graph paper fairly easily. You just got to be very careful with drawing your lines. But you can always check your work. You know how you check it? You take this point and you plug it in where the x and the y is and see if it's correct. So I would say -6 equals -5 times 4 plus 14. And you would come out with -20 plus 14 does equal -6. All right, good? So let's do number 3. Now, I'm going to let you pick. Do you want to do table or graph? I don't care. I heard. All right, I got a vote for each.
Okay, so
Graph.
just vote.
There's 2 graphs.
Graph, raise your hand if you want to graph.
Don't you threaten. Don't you threaten my girls.
Just kidding.
I will beat you. There's a threat.
You won't.
I got permission from your mama.
It's okay. Mama don't want me.
Table or graph?
Yeah, that's so.
I like tables better than graphs. But it doesn't matter. Okay. So x here, y equals x, and this one is y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, so what x values do we want to use? I always like using 0. And let's try 1. And try those 2 first. Okay, so if I plug in 0 here, what y equals what? That was a hard one. If I plug in 1 where the x is, what does my y equal?
One.
1, because they plugged in a 1 there. All right, let's try the other equation. If I plug in a 0, I get 2 times 0 plus 1. What's 2 times 0? 0 plus 1? Good. Now let's plug the 1 in. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1. Okay, that's going up. The other one is going up, but not as fast. This is where I would try a negative. Because see how this is increasing 0 to 1 and 1 to 3?
Yeah.
They're just going to keep increasing. So let's try a -1 and see if they come close. So y equals, if I plug in this -1, what do I get?
-1.
So if I plug in -1 here, I get 2 times the -1, which is -2, plus 1, which is, woohoo! Okay, the equation, the second equation is y equals 2 times, I plugged in a -1 where the x is. 2 times -1 is -2. -2 plus 1 would be -1. Make sense? So what's my solution? -1, -1. Because that's where they come out. Okay? Any questions? If I graph that on the graph, it's going to cross at -1, -1. One line's going to go one way, one line's going to go the other way. All right. So now you've learned how to solve a system of linear equations by either doing a table or graphing it. Now I'm going to show you my favorite way, algebraically. Because you always get the answer. I hate it when you have to graph and like hope it crosses. I hate that. So algebraically, what you're going to do is you're going to solve both of your equations for y, and then you can substitute the equation where the y is and solve for x. So let me show you. Okay, I don't want to jump into a word problem. So I'm just going to use the last on your own we did. So just write this in your journals. This is like a bonus. So this one is solved for y, right? The other one is 2x plus 1. So these are both already solved for y. So basically what you can do is where the y is in each of these equations, I can take this whole side and plug it in. So I can say x equals, and then do this side, 2x plus 1. And then I solve for x. Okay, so in order to solve for x, I get them both on the same side. So I'm going to say minus 2x. So I get minus x equals 1. Divide by negative 1. I get x equals negative 1. Okay, so once I have x equals negative 1, I just plug it in either equation, and that tells me y equals negative 1. So then my answer is negative 1, negative 1. Okay? So all you're doing is after you have solved for y, then you can set the right-hand side of the equation equal to each other. And that's how you solve for x. Once you have x, I plug it into one of the equations, and I can get my new y value. We're going to do a couple of these. I see some confusion. So, let's look at example 3. I know it's a word problem, but it'll get us there. All right, it says, a middle school yearbook committee has 35 members. There are 7 more girls than boys. Use the model to write the system of linear equations and then solve to find the number of boys, x, and the number of girls, y. So we have boys and girls, and how many total do we have? It told us. It says it had 35 members. It says there are 7 more girls than boys. So girls is boys plus 7. Do I have 2 equations now? Yes. So to solve it algebraically, I have to have both of them solved for one of the variables. Well, this one's already solved for y, so let's solve this top one for y. All you got to do is say minus x. So you get y equals minus x plus 35. Good? I'm trying not to go too fast, but we're running out of time. So now I have both solved for y, correct? So you just take the other side of the equation. So I'm going to take x plus 7 equals, and then this part of the equation, negative x plus 35. Now I solve for x. So we have x's on both sides, so I'm going to move them so they're on the same side. So add x over here. That cancels. X plus x is 2x. Now I got to move this 7. So minus 7 minus 7. What is 35 minus 7? 35 minus 7. 28. Almost there. So I have 2 times x, so I got to divide the 2. So I get x equals, what's 28 divided by 2? 14. So now I have my x solution. So how do I find my y? I take that and I plug it in one of the original equations. Well, you have this ugly equation or you have a very simple equation. If I plug in 14 here, can I find my y really quickly?
Yeah.
So I have y equals 14 plus 7. What's 14 plus 7?
No.
14 plus 7, yeah.
28, yeah, I was right.
I think it is 14. 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, no, it's not 28. 7, yeah, 21.
21.
So then my solution to this is 14, comma 21. Okay?
Yes.
Questions? I know you're all running away already. Do you have any questions? This is your homework.
No questions.
Are you published on YouTube?
I am publishing it on YouTube.
Okay, good.
You're doing numbers 3 through 7 and 10 through 15. If it tells you to table and graph, you can choose one or the other. I don't care which one you do.